Hello everyone, and welcome to the comment section. The series, of course, where we sift through the many comments on the channel and go over some questions you might have, as well as correct some mistakes that I've made along the way. And today we have things from World at War, Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 2. If you do enjoy any of this, then consider leaving a like down below. It helps me out a ton, and of course, make sure you subscribe so you can come back for more. Without further ado, let's get into it. For our first comment today, we have one by someone's name I definitely can't pronounce, but they say that the Japanese officer that we see at the start of World at War was not used for Takeo in that game. Instead, the World at War Takeo was the generic Japanese officer model. While in Black Ops 1, that is where they went back and reused the officer's design for Takeo instead. So apparently, Takeo changed between World at War and Black Ops 1, and that is what we're going to investigate right now. So for those who don't know, here is the very first mission of the World at War campaign, and in it we see what looks a lot like Takeo, at the very least from Black Ops 1. This is the officer that this commenter claims to be the Black Ops 1 character model, but not the World at War character model, like I claimed previously on the channel, as well as I think a lot of the internet too. We can see he has a pretty small mustache and no hat on his head, with some sort of buzz cut I suppose instead. And if we head on over to other missions in the World at War campaign, we will find a character model that has the exact same uniform, fit with a badge and all, but does not have a mustache and instead has a hat on his head. And this is that generic officer model that this commenter is talking about. But now comes to answer the question, what about zombies? Which one of these guys is Takeo? Is it both? Is it one of them? Well, on Black Ops 1, I have a mod menu that allows me to clone myself. And in doing so, we can get an up-close look at the Takeo model for that game, which we can see has a very similar uniform to the one from the World at War campaign. He has that same hat on top of his head, however his face is quite a bit different than the clean-shaven one. He has a mustache, and he looks quite a bit older. Also, just a weird note, it looks like in first person your hands are wrapped up with some kind of gauze, but here on third person, looking at the character model, that definitely isn't the case. Kind of strange. But nevertheless, in conclusion, it seems that in Black Ops 1, at the very least, Takeo is that very first campaign model. However, he is fitted with the hat, just like that generic officer model is. So that's the answer for Black Ops 1, but what about World at War? Was it different for the very first version? Well, unfortunately, I don't have a very good way to clone myself in World at War. I mean, I can, but I actually need 4 people in my lobby to be able to access Takeo. But thankfully, we have a picture of the guy right here on the loading screens. And we can definitely see that he is clean-shaven. He does not have a mustache, he doesn't look old at all, he actually looks quite young. And he matches pretty much perfectly with the generic officer model that we can find in the campaign. So it turns out I was definitely wrong, and this commenter is 100% correct. Takeo's model changed between World at War and Black Ops 1. I never knew this before, and it seems like most of the internet doesn't as well. So thank you very much for the comment. We finally set the record straight. For the next comment today, we have one by Red the Gaming, who gives a fun fact about Chernov's death scene in the campaign, and that there was actually going to be more than just his death, and that you were originally going to put him out of his misery, and given the choice to do it yourself or have Reznov do it for you. And luckily, a guy by the name Jerry Alt on YouTube has restored this death animation, so let's give it a watch real quick.
He is suffering. You know what you should do.
So it seems that World at War not only had some animations in store for this, but also had voice lines from Reznov. And here you can see that his name turns red, as well as your crosshairs when you aim at him. But if you decide not to kill Chernov, Reznov will do it for you. And looking at the description of this video, it says that there's an animation related to Reznov picking up the diary from Chernov. And he had to remove this animation in order to not make it look real goofy. Which makes me think maybe that's the reason that they did it. I mean, World at War was definitely not trying to be PC. And although it could be the case that they just decided, maybe it's a little bit too much to make the player kill one of your comrades, I sort of think that that's not the case. And it would make a lot more sense to me that the reason they did this is because they wanted to showcase the Chernov diary scene where he's talking about Dmitri and his morality. And these animations just didn't quite line up with each other or something along those lines. I'm not sure. Could very well be the case, maybe not. Let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. But either way, really cool, so thank you to Jerry Alt. I'm gonna leave a like on this video. And also, thank you to our commenter for pointing this out to us. For our next comment today, we are going to correct a mistake that I made on the last episode of Dev Tricks and Secrets. A really stupid one, actually. Because I said that there were 7 versions of Nocturne Toten, and boy was I wrong, and you guys were quick to point that out. So to correct the record real quick, there are actually 9 versions of Nocturne Toten, 2 of them I forgot about for some reason. One being the multiplayer of World at War, and I think the reason for this is I really didn't play a ton of World at War multiplayer. I went back and played it, actually, funny enough, like a few years after World at War was no longer really being played all that much. But for some reason, Airfield just didn't stick in my head, even though I've covered it here on the channel before. And I suppose also this is sort of the same map from the campaign, actually. It even has the same hangars in the distance as well as the same mountains. However, of course, the area here on the airfield itself has changed significantly to make it more playable for multiplayer. The layout is very different than what we see in the campaign, and not to mention also very different from Zombies as well. For instance, the iconic plane here that we see outside of Nocturne Toten is in a completely different place than it normally is. It should be right where I'm looking now instead. But in Airfield, this entire side of the building you can't see out of, so that's why there's no plane there. It turns out that those doorways were made just for zombie spawns. For our next comment today, we have one about the lore of Black Ops 2, which in that video I played this TV message that can be found on the map Die Rise.
Anyone out there? Please respond. I desperately need help. The others left me, and I'm alone and frightened. Help! I tried to do it right, but the others wouldn't listen. This piece goes here. This piece goes there. I couldn't do it on my own. I need help. I really do. The German man stopped talking to me, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
And in this radio message, we can clearly hear an American woman that is desperately in need of help, saying that everyone else has left her and she's tried to do it right, but the others would not help her put together some sort of machine, which of course seems to be a polarization device. And she ends off saying that some German man stopped talking to her, and she doesn't know what to do. Well, in the last episode of Learning Lore, I said that this person was most likely a member of the Flesh. Although I wasn't 100% sure, I assumed the German man that she was talking about was Richthofen, as he seems to go missing in action every once in a while. But according to this commenter, they always assumed that the radio woman was Misty, one of the characters that we play as in Die Rise, considering apparently they have the same voice actor, which I didn't notice, and that the German man talking to her is actually Maxis rather than Richthofen, which, if it is Misty, of course it would be, considering I don't think Misty has eaten the flesh. She doesn't seem to have voices in her head like Stuhlinger. But the lore would be that she tried building the towers on her own before meeting the others, and this commenter also thinks that Marlton heard her message and found her first. And maybe that's why she likes him so much, which would sort of make a lot of sense. So if this is true, it means that Misty was a follower of Maxis before this, trying to complete these polarization devices for him. And somewhere along the way, Marlton bumped into Misty, which, as we mentioned before, is definitely lore accurate. Misty and Marlton were together at the diner near their Hanford site facility when Stuhlinger and Russman bumped into them, and thus the events of Transit began. Although the Chronorium does not seem to say anything about how Misty and Marlton got together. So let's listen to a few voice lines side by side and see if we can make any sense of this.
I can't see 3 feet in front of my face. Let's just wander around until we're all dead. How's that for a plan?
Anyone out there? Please respond. I desperately need help.
It's sort of hard to tell because the person in the TV message is obviously acting a lot more distraught than Misty does in the game. But I am pretty damn sure that it is the same voice actor. I think this commenter is correct. They seem to have the same accent at the very least. So that makes me wonder what's going on here. It very well might be the case that this is supposed to be Misty in this radio. but it could alternatively not mean to be Misty in this radio, and simply just be the same voice actor. And third option, it could be the case that Treyarch was using this voice actor to make a radio. This is the script that they gave her, and she did so well that they decided to cast her for Misty. And that came after this voice line being recorded. And in all honesty, I have no evidence of any of these three scenarios being correct. I don't really know if this is supposed to be Misty, or if it's just the same voice actor being reused. And I definitely don't know the order in which these things were recorded, and whether this was planned ahead of time or not. But nevertheless, beforehand, I did not know this was the same voice actor, so it is really cool to be able to see this, and definitely makes me wonder what's going on here with Misty, and more about her background. Since we know she obviously grew up on a farm by many of the quotes that she says throughout the game, I would assume probably a farm not too far from the location of transit. But where exactly, I guess we don't have an idea. And whether that polarization device that she was originally trying to build was there at Green Run, I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like that might be the case if that lore ends up being accurate. Let me know down in the comment section once again what you guys think. I'd love to hear about it. For our next comment today, we have one that was left on the Learning Lore video for the beginning of Black Ops 2, the one that covered transit in Nuketown. AEGXS says the thing that bugs me the most about the Shattered Earth storyline is when it takes place. Green Run seems antiquated compared to the year 2025, and Nuketown doesn't seem to be up to date either, considering Moon happens at the same time. Yet the very next map, Die Rise, has the COD Zombies from the campaign that takes place in 2025. Well, a sort of quick answer to this can be found in the Chronorium, but I do think there's more to dive in here. But to start with that as our baseline, the Chronorium does say that Die Rise takes place in 2035. 10 years after the events of Moon, as well as Nuketown, when those nukes hit the Earth, fracturing it, essentially starting the end of the world. But I think the interesting part about this comment is that they say that Green Run seems antiquated compared to the year 2025. And also Nuketown as well really doesn't seem like 2025 either. Both of them would make a lot more sense to be closer to the time of Black Ops 1 perhaps, which took place in the Cold War from 1961 to 1968. So is transit actually taking place in 2025? Because I'll be honest, I agree with this commenter, it really does not look like 2025 here. None of these buildings look futuristic whatsoever. In fact, I would probably say the opposite. I mean, even the bus here, which was supposed to have been taken from the Nuketown facility in 2025, looks like a bus from like the 80s or something. Really, the only thing that seems futuristic whatsoever is our bus driver. Being a robot powered by AI, that definitely seems 2025, but literally everything else around us doesn't. It could very well be the case that this is just a small town, somewhere near the Hanford site facility, and because of that, well, we're not exactly seeing a lot of 2025 technology, which, hell, 2025 is coming real soon. In fact, you might be watching this video in 2025, which, if you are, cheers to you. And of course, in America, we still have many small towns that look a lot like this, actually. I mean, still there's some things that are a little bit strange, with the car models and the truck models looking quite old, but I suppose it's plausible that this is 2025 somehow. And if transit did take place in 2025, like the Chronorium says it does, of course this would make plenty of sense why the CDC was formed before the nukes hit the Earth, as they were as well by that time in the Black Ops 2 campaign. But lastly, let's explore the idea that perhaps this is not 2025, or at the very least, Green Run is from a different time. As we know, of course, in the zombie storyline, there are a whole lot of time shenanigans, as our commenter said as well. And we do know that these seemingly 115-powered nukes from Moon did hit Earth and created a whole bunch of rifts, which rifts in zombies typically also mean temporal ones, where some time stuff might be getting mixed up a little bit, and maybe transit is actually from an entirely different time altogether. And this Green Run that we're looking at isn't actually from 2035 at all. Even though our characters are from 2035, it's just that the location isn't. It's very possible, but the only evidence of it seems to be the modeling around the map, with most of it being sort of themed after the 70s and 80s. And if it is true and a temporal rift is actually what brought Green Run to us, well, it would connect the two storylines together. Having the Chronorium make sense that transit took place in 2035, as well as having the modeling of Green Run itself make sense. But no matter what the answer actually is, that is a very interesting question, so thank you for your comment. For our next comment, we're going to the Black Ops 2 campaign, where I recently covered the mission Pyrrhic Victory, the very first one in the campaign, where you fight through the deserts of Angola and then save Sergeant Frank Woods from the back of a boat. Which in that video I found that after you get to the boat, if you use some no-clip and fly on up into the air, you can see in the distance there is a separate area. And this separate area is used for the end of the mission, where you find Raul Menendez inside of a radio building. But something very strange happens when you come here early. Instead of spawning the normal character models, it spawns these really strange white block-looking dudes, which seem to have full animations and everything else works with them. They can shoot, they can fight back, but they're just made of blocks. But as little DVS Vivo, as well as someone on my Discord pointed out, these are the hitbox skeleton. Although this commenter also says that they're not even models, and I'm going to prove him wrong in just a second. But it's okay, being wrong is good. And most of the information I'm going to tell you here, I didn't know until like literally just a few moments ago. The way that spawning works typically in Call of Duty games is there is a spawner associated with them. These spawners are called actors, and they're entities. And for instance, this one here is responsible for spawning zombies with the appropriate character model, the ones from the Giant. And I imagine this island has its own spawner hidden underneath the map somewhere, and we can't see it, of course, because it's invisible. And since we haven't hit some appropriate triggers along the way, it seems that those spawners haven't activated properly. At least they don't know what model to pull from, and instead, they're pulling these models, which is coincidentally called the default actor. Essentially, these are the default model for Black Ops 2, and it would make a lot of sense that they're simply just the hitbox skeleton. And as it turns out, Black Ops 2 is not the only Call of Duty with a default actor. In fact, I would imagine every single Call of Duty has one. For instance, here in Black Ops 1, using a mod menu, I can spawn this default actor. And we can see he is very similar to the one in Black Ops 2. Although, albeit, it seems that there has been some slight changes to the hitbox between the two games, I imagine this is also the hitbox skeleton for Black Ops 1. Also, kinda looks like he has scoliosis or something, man. But his neck does not really align with his back very well, does it? But this gets even crazier if we go on over to World at War, because the default actor in this game is wild. Let me just go ahead and go into my models menu, select the default actor, and then if I go ahead and make a clone, here's our default actor. I looked online to see if this was a joke. It's not a joke. This is actually the default model here in World at War, and it seems to be some cartoonish looking woman with an army helmet on. Absolutely amazing, dude. I don't know who the developer is that made this, but it is hilarious. Clearly, in World at War, they were a little bit less concerned about the hitboxes, and I guess a little bit more concerned about making a funny joke. I mean, looking at this character's face, though, at the same time, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of detail put into this, which would make sense considering no one would ever see it. I mean, the resolution compared to the zombie, for instance, it's quite a bit different. This is definitely something I never thought I would see, and it's actually from the game as well. Crazy. For our next comment, we have one from Fuse T saying, "Hey bro, can you make a comparison video between Citadelle de Mort and Cité de Carcassonne, an IRL place in my city? Apparently that's what it's based off of." Which, typing into Google Maps, is this absolute beaut of a citadel, and we can use some street views here to walk on through it. And the first thing I'll say is walking into the front entrance here, well, it feels quite a bit different than the map. I mean, this really doesn't look super similar, but with a little bit of exploration, we'll start to see some things that are looking quite a bit like Citadelle de Mort. As right here, we can even find the town square that you spawn in. Fit with the church tower and all, this is definitely Citadelle de Mort. Although, albeit quite a bit different than the Zombies map, but still really cool to see nonetheless. And finally, for our last comment today, we have one from Darth Ominous, stretching all the way back to the very first Outside Black Ops 2 video I made on the death of Alex Mason. And he asks, is it possible to knife kill Mason? And if so, which ending do you get? Well, this is a fantastic question, so let's go ahead and find out.
No one must know I betrayed him.
Him? Hudson, who is Nexus' target? Hudson!
It's him, Woods. Nexus' target is Raul Menendez.
You should have told us, Hudson. You should have told us.
We are ready. Bring him out.
They're bringing the son of a bitch out.
Confirm visual.
He even has people in the CIA.
Well, there's Mason. Let's go ahead and fly on down to him. And, here goes nothing. Oh, I can't knife in this at all. Unfortunately, it seems that the melee button does absolutely nothing at this point in the mission. I'm barred from using it completely. It seems like the only weapon we have is the Barrett 50 cal. And with the use of the give all command, though, we can give ourselves all of the weapons in the game, including this default weapon here, which reminds me a lot of World at War. And we even have Molotovs. Nice. And it's pretty strange to see just how few weapons are tied to this campaign mission. There really are not a lot of options here to kill Mason with. I suppose this should do pretty good. Some finger guns.
Shoot him in the fucking head.
I really gotta shoot him again, huh? Yeah, I really do. Oh my god. I actually forgot that ended the mission. Alright, let's do it one more time. Give all. We gotta try the grenades and the Molotovs, right? Well, here's the Molotov.
Take the headshot. Shoot him in the fucking head.
It seems like the Molotov counts as a leg kill, and if we do this carefully so that it doesn't hurt any of the other guards, it seems we get the ending in which Mason survives. We can see here when we go up to him, he does not have a bullet hole in his head.
You bastard!
So I guess Mason can survive even a Molotov. And lastly, let's go ahead and try out a grenade.
Shoot him in the fucking head.
The first one seems to wound him, just like the Molotov, and the last one, if we place it carefully, which is really hard to do because if it damages either of the two guards, it just fails the mission. Let me try to, just hit him. Oh, I hit him with it. Okay, well. Yeah, and then the mission ends anyway. I guess that trigger sticks around for after as well. It seems pretty hard to get this one to work, but I imagine we already know the answer here. It's going to be the exact same as the Molotov. Unfortunately, we still can't knife him even at this point, but at least we got to use a different gun. So that's cool. But that is it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, consider leaving a like down below. It helps me out a ton, and of course, make sure to subscribe so you can come back for more. And of course, keep leaving those comments down there. I read every single one of them, and you might just be featured on the next episode. But with that being said, that is all for me. If you want to watch more of my content, you can click one of the videos on your screen right now. But if not, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay awesome, and peace out.